Stepmom put my dad in debt and kicked me out. Now they're homeless and I refuse to help. My name is Emily. I'm 24. It all started 3 years ago when my dad decided that his new love was exactly what he needed in his 50s. Like his midlife crisis just had to come with a flashy blonde. That's when Diana appeared. Imagine, a woman in her 40s with enough makeup to stock a whole store. And yes, she immediately thought she was the queen of our castle, even if our castle was just an old suburban house. The first day she showed up was a complete circus. Picture this. She pulls up in her shiny new convertible, which my dad was clearly more excited about than her. 5 huge suitcases spilled out of the trunk, like she was moving into a 5-star hotel, not a 3-bedroom house with a leaky roof. I stood at the door, watching her waltz in, and I knew right away she was here for the long haul. She had a smile so wide I could almost see her back teeth, and she immediately declared that she wanted to be my best friend. "Oh, honey, we're going to be like sisters," she said with such drama that I wanted to roll my eyes. There was something more in her tone than just friendliness. It felt like a warning. "Get ready, girl. I'm here for a reason." But my dad, blinded by her charm, stood there grinning like a kid in a candy store. For the first time in years, I saw him that happy, and it freaked me out a little. At first, she genuinely tried to be nice. Made breakfast with the kind of enthusiasm you'd expect from someone trying to win a Michelin star. She offered to watch movies together, just for some bonding time, sweetie. Yeah, sure. I saw her sneaking looks at my room, checking out my stuff, my books, my notes with a weird curiosity. "Oh, you have such interesting taste," she said once, peeking at my vinyl collection. But her face gave her away. I was just an obstacle in her path. Every gesture, every glance from her was like a message. This is my house now, and you're just a guest. And I knew the game was on. She wasn't the type to sit quietly in a corner. No, Diana was here to rule, and as always, I was the outsider in my own family. Soon enough, problems started, and it was so predictable I almost wanted to clap and say, "I called it." Once Diana felt she had my dad wrapped around her finger, she slowly but surely started turning our house into her own territory. It began with little things. Suddenly, all my favorite snacks disappeared from the fridge. Snickers, yogurt, even my special peanut sauce. All replaced with healthy options that she loved to say were just better for the body and soul, sweetie. Oh, right, because I've always dreamed of having a protein shake for breakfast. My dad acted like he was brainwashed. He even seemed to enjoy our new quinoa salad with chia seeds dinners. He suddenly became a fan of this shiny nonsense. I tried to joke. "Hey, Dad, next time let's have some good old-fashioned food with actual flavor." But he just smiled and said, "Diana really understands what we need." Yeah, sure. Like I need a nutrition lecture from someone who thinks spinach is tasty. With each passing day, Diana dug herself deeper into our lives. She even set up a family time schedule where, once a week, we were supposed to watch her favorite movies. You know, those old, boring melodramas that make you want to fall asleep in 5 minutes. I went along with it because I wanted to figure out what she was up to, and it paid off. One day, I came home early and saw her on the phone in the kitchen. She was talking about loans and interest rates so casually I wanted to ask, "Who the hell are you talking to, Miss Finance Genius?" But I just watched and waited. Later, when Diana went to the bathroom, I noticed an envelope on the table with a bank logo. Interesting, right? I couldn't resist and peeked inside. And that's when the real trouble started. Credit cards in my dad's name. Not just one, but 3. And all of them had active balances. I even saw a list of purchases that were way out of our budget. Oh, so that's where the fancy shoes and spa trips come from, I thought, feeling a burning rage inside. She was literally spending my dad's money like it was hers. Let me tell you, when I saw that envelope with the bank statement, my heart stopped for a second. The huge debt numbers practically screamed in my face. "Hey, guess what? You're screwed." My dad's name was on the envelope, but I knew he couldn't have spent that kind of money. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some technical error or fraud. But then I remembered Diana's shopping sprees, and everything clicked. The next day, I decided to confront my dad. I approached him while he was lounging on the couch with a newspaper, looking totally content. I handed him the envelope, barely holding back the tremor in my voice, and asked what the hell was going on. He didn't even look up, just took the bill, glanced at the numbers, and shrugged. "Oh, don't worry, dear," he said. "Diana will handle it. She knows what she's doing." Knows what she's doing? Dad, are you kidding me? We're drowning in debt, and you think she's got it under control? He just waved it off like I was worrying about nothing and went back to his paper. That's when it hit me. He was completely under her control, like someone had taken out his brain and replaced it with a bag of fluffy cotton. I didn't know how to get through to him. He wasn't even trying to understand. So I decided that if someone was going to save our house from financial ruin, it sure as hell wasn't going to be him. It had to be me. Just me. My life turned into a nonstop cycle of arguments. Almost every night, I tried to knock some sense into my dad, explaining how his precious wife had dug us into a financial hole. We fought so loudly that the neighbors probably heard every word. My dad just retreated deeper into his indifference, and I couldn't stop myself. "Dad, wake up. We're on the brink of losing everything, and you're just sitting there listening to her crap." But he'd just sigh and say things like, "Emily, you're being too dramatic." Dramatic? I knew that if I didn't step in, we'd soon be homeless. Every time I brought up the topic, Diana would appear out of nowhere with her trademark smile, saying, "Don't you worry, darling. I've got this under control." And my dad would silently follow her like a lost puppy. It was clear she had won. But I decided to let her think she was in control because I wasn't giving up without a fight. One evening, after an especially crappy day at work, I came home hoping for at least a little peace and quiet. But as soon as I reached the door, it swung open, and there stood Diana with a smug smile that told me something big was about to go down. I didn't even get the chance to ask what was happening before she shoved a suitcase into my hands. My own suitcase. "You're no longer part of this family," she sang sweetly, as if announcing she'd just won a prize. My dad stood behind her, silent, eyes downcast. Yes, the same man who had once promised to always protect me. "What?" was all I could say. I mean, really, what else do you say when you're being kicked out of your own home like unwanted trash? She repeated, with a much colder tone this time. "You're not needed here anymore. Dad agrees with my decision." Dad stayed silent. I looked at him, searching for any hint of support, regret, anything. But he just stood there, staring at the floor, as if his shoes were suddenly the most interesting things in the world. Diana slammed the door before I could even react. The last thing I saw before it shut was her victorious gaze and my dad's empty expression. "So, that's it, huh?" I whispered, realizing I couldn't do anything more. 1 second, and I was tossed out of the family, as if I was an unnecessary part of the perfect picture Diana was so carefully crafting. I stood on the sidewalk, with only a single suitcase holding what I once considered my belongings. No warning, no explanations. Just goodbye. Darkness settled around me, and I suddenly understood that there was no room for me in that cold air anymore. Our house, my house, had now become a stranger's place. Wow, Emily, that went south really fast, I thought, trying to push away the wave of despair. My heart pounded in my ears, and I stood there, frozen, unsure of where to go. It took me a few minutes to realize I no longer had a home. Everything I had was now behind that closed door. The first few weeks were like my own personal hell on earth. Seriously, I didn't think things could get any worse. I couch hopped from one friend's place to another. They'd let me crash for a night or two, then hint that they had plans and needed their personal space. Great. I wasn't planning to stay forever, but not having a home kind of complicates things. Each time I packed up my stuff and left another temporary shelter, I felt like a character in some cheap drama series where the main heroine just can't catch a break. Work was the only thing keeping me afloat. I threw myself into projects, took extra shifts, anything to avoid thinking about how my dad had chosen that credit card queen over me. Yet every time I returned to an empty friend's room or sat in a cafe, caught between jobs and waiting for my next place to sleep, the pain of betrayal hit me all over again. It was like pulling out a splinter, but the wound still bleeding. Okay, screw this, I thought one day, sitting in my friend's kitchen with a cheap cup of coffee in my hands. I realized I was done being the victim. If they kicked me out, then this was my chance to prove who the real fighter was. I decided to start over from scratch. No pity for myself. Enough of the whining. I deserved more. I got a second job, which nearly made my friends roll their eyes. Seriously, Emily, do you want to work yourself to death? They asked, but I just shrugged and smiled. Working myself into the ground was the only way I didn't feel helpless. Day by day, sleepless nights, penny by penny, I saved money like each coin was a ticket to freedom. Months later, I finally had enough to rent a tiny apartment. To say it was a dump would be an understatement. Peeling paint on the walls, creaky floors, and windows that let in the cold like they were made of mesh. But damn it, it was mine. It's not much, but it's home, I told myself when I stepped inside for the first time, dragging my battered suitcase behind me. I was starting from zero, literally zero. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I had no proper furniture, and the fridge held nothing but a few cans and lots of instant noodles. But you know what? I didn't care. I felt this crazy determination inside. I knew that if I could handle this, I could handle anything. A year later, I could finally breathe again, or at least not feel like I was drowning at every step. I had pulled myself out of the lowest point. I found a decent job and could even afford to buy some furniture for my tiny, fancy apartment. IKEA shelves, a flea market couch, you know, the classic symbol of a new life. I still worked like a horse, but at least I didn't feel completely lost anymore. It was the first time in a long while that I felt like things were actually going to be okay. And then, just when I started to get back on my feet, I got the news. I was sitting in a cafe scrolling through my phone when an old acquaintance who worked at a bank called. I picked up, hearing his slightly apologetic tone. "Hey, Emily, you won't believe this, but guess what happened to your dear old dad and his lovely wife?" It turns out Diana had racked up so much debt in my dad's name that they couldn't keep up with the payments anymore. Just imagine, the woman who had been so desperate to show off her new, healthy lifestyle was now bankrupt. The house was sold at auction, and they were out on the street. I could hardly believe it, but at the same time, I wanted to laugh at how ridiculous the situation was. So, karma does exist, huh? I thought. Not sure if I should cry or laugh. My bank friend confirmed that Diana had manipulated my dad's finances. She burned through all his money, credit, and savings like they were her personal piggy bank. She somehow managed to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on useless things and, of course, her fun. Yeah, her fairy tale life crumbled the moment reality hit. "You know what's funny?" my friend said. "Your dad, he had no clue. He thought she was just helping with the finances." He chuckled. I did too. It was both hilarious and sad at the same time. My dad had always been so naive, so good-hearted. Yeah, it was awful that he ended up in that situation, but honestly, part of me felt he deserved it for blindly worshipping Diana. And there they were, Diana and my dad, my sweet former family, left on the street, with just a couple of suitcases that couldn't hold their illusion of happiness anymore. Their perfect world had shattered, and if it weren't for the bitter betrayal I'd gone through, I might have felt sorry for them. But not now. I was heading home after a long workday, completely exhausted, just thinking about getting to my apartment and collapsing on my squeaky couch. And that's when I saw them, Diana and my dear dad, near the subway station. They looked like lost tourists who had wandered into the wrong part of town, trying to figure out which way to go. Diana looked like she'd seen a ghost. Pale, hair disheveled, no makeup, wearing some cheap coat. Yeah, her shiny world had fallen apart. And my dad stood next to her, leaning against a wall, barely able to keep himself up. It seemed like a breeze could blow him over. At first, I wanted to just walk by, but something made me stop. Maybe I wanted to witness it with my own eyes. They noticed me, and I saw their eyes light up, as if I were their last hope of salvation. They moved towards me like I was a guardian angel, and it felt so weird to watch them. The absurdity of it all. The people who kicked me out were now out in the cold themselves. "Emily, we need your help," Diana began, with such desperation in her voice that I almost laughed. Oh, now they needed my help? I stopped, crossed my arms, and just looked at them. My dad muttered something about losing the house, how it all happened so suddenly, how they tried to manage. Listening to it felt like a cheap tragicomedy. "Oh, so now you need me, huh?" I said, not taking my eyes off their pathetic faces. I already knew what I was going to say, but I let them keep talking just to savor the moment. Diana tried to seem sweet and pitiful, which, to be honest, didn't work at all. All her shine and glamour were gone, leaving only an empty shell. I listened to their pleas for help, how they had nowhere to stay, how they'd realized everything, and wanted to make it right. My dad even tried to show remorse, looking me in the eye with a begging expression. It was both sad and funny. The man who had once been my hero was now standing before me, asking for help I knew I wouldn't give. I took a deep breath, and for a second, I hesitated. Then I just coldly said, "No." Diana's face twisted in shock and horror. My dad tried to say something, but the words stuck in his throat. They looked at me as if I'd just shot them in the heart. I turned around and walked away, not looking back, even though I could feel their eyes burning into my back. Yes, it was damn hard, but I knew it was the only right choice. They chose their fate when they betrayed me for their illusions. Now it was my turn to draw the line. Now, years later, I sometimes look back and can't help but smirk. No, I don't feel a single drop of regret. Not one of those sad, melodramatic moments where you suddenly decide you were too harsh. No, I made it, damn it. I built a career I couldn't have even dreamed of in those days when I was crashing on friends' couches and living off instant noodles. Now I have my own office, a fancy apartment with a city view, and my daily morning coffee at my favorite cafe. It's no longer a luxury. It's a routine. As for my dad and Diana, they vanished from my life like a bad dream. I don't know where they are, and honestly, I don't care. Maybe they found another house, another victim to exploit. Maybe Diana is now giving workshops on effective financial management. Who knows? What matters is they have no power over me anymore. Their shadows no longer follow me, and the painful memories don't burn like they used to. I don't feel pain or anger anymore. It's like you've shed a ton of useless junk that was weighing you down. It's like the moment you finally throw away an old, worn-out coat that no longer fits. I've learned that I must always put myself first, and that the world doesn't owe anyone anything. Especially not those who betrayed you for their own gain. Of course, it wasn't easy. Life's not a fairy tale, and I'm not skipping down some magical yellow brick road. But I've become tougher. I turned my betrayal into the fuel that now drives every step I take forward. People love to talk about forgiveness and working through the pain, but you know what? Sometimes it's better to just leave that crap behind and move on. And that's exactly what I did. The story is over, but it doesn't define who I've become. I get to decide how I live, and each new day is my choice. I'm the one at the wheel of my life, and I won't let anyone steer me off course again. So if anyone thinks my past defines me, they can take a hike. I don't look back. I only look forward, and there's no room for old ghosts there.